Y'all know what? I want to talk about something that I actually lived and to let y'all know, enlighten y'all on some things that do happen. I did a video about the Section 8 housing program, and this video I want to deal with the Housing Authority program. I want to deal with talking about the Housing Authority program and how the Housing Authority program actually worked when I lived in the Housing Authority program. But I want to talk about it on this aspect. There are men in Housing Authority as well. There are men that live on the system as well. It's not all about the women. The reason why y'all hear so much about the women is because of the fact that there's so many women that were by themselves and the men were not allowed to be there with them. It was not like the kings did not want to step up, did not want to be with their women. Before we get into it, good afternoon. How y'all doing? This is Marietta here, and I just uplift, motivate, and inspire over here. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. So many of y'all are watching, but you're not subscribed. And it would be nice to have you over here. I'm on a 10K journey. And with that being said, let's get into it. Well, as I lived in this Housing Authority program, there was a lot of places that I lived under the Housing Authority. I lived in 3 or 4 different projects as I was coming up, different areas. So I got a chance to see a lot of things as a young girl. And as a young girl coming up having children, there was a lot of things that went on in the projects that went untold, and it seemed like the women were just the only ones that were out there all by themselves. But they did have men in some of them units. Sometimes the men would come and stay for a while, but they could not stay because of the fact that the income was not enough to be able for them to stay there permanently. So they more or less gave the units to the women and the children. It was another way of dividing the homes, whether y'all know it or not. So I'm just telling my story. This is my story, my opinion only. Y'all can type it in the comments what your experience was and how it was for you when you was there. But I did see a lot of men coming and going in these units over the years. And I saw a lot of cars that would come and go on the 1st of the month when they used to get their public assistance checks and their food stamps, and it used to be on the 7th of the month they would get their public assistance and food stamps. And as these things unfolded, the women needed some help. Even though they were there with their children, they still needed some help. So sometimes you would see different cars with different men coming and going, and you would see men there in those units trying to help the women and to be able to help them to stand on their own 2 feet. However, because they were not on the lease, they could not stay. And because they would have to undergo so much about their credit, about their background and things of that nature, and then the women could not put themselves in harm's way of losing their unit. So 9 times out of 10, most of the time, they would sneak the men in, they would hide their clothes, and they would try to not allow the Housing Authority to find out that they were there. But it wasn't the fact that there was no men in the Housing Authority. They were there. Some of them even had units of their own that they also paid for. But it just seemed like because the women had the children and the women stayed with the children most of the time. I mean, this is not everybody's story. This is not something that every man or every woman did. Every man, every woman did not live in a Housing Authority. But I'm just telling my story. But there were some men there. But so a lot of people think the stigmatism of just women live in Housing Authority. It's not so true. It's not true. Men live there too, but a lot of times when the men stayed there, it went unrecorded because of financial reasons, or because of the fact that if they had charges, or if they had if they didn't have a job, or they were not in a permanent relationship with that woman, it wasn't beneficial for her to put you on her lease knowing that you were not going to be stable, or you were not going to be there, or he was going to come and go, or it was just a part-time fling or a part-time thing. So, but a lot of times when people look at women that are in the Housing Authority, they look down on them, not realizing there are some that are very educated that are there also, that are trying to work their way up out of the system, that do not like living on the system, that have made it out of there and have moved on with their life. And then there are some men that actually have stayed with some of the women there, and they got married and they moved on, and some of them got married and they stayed there. But as you go through, because society, even if you look it up, they'll say most of the people that were in the Section 8 or under the Housing Authority in the projects were mostly women with children, and women that were left to raise their children by themselves for whatever reason. Whatever the reason is, they were there. And that we thank God for the housing authority being there and being available so they would have a place to keep their children. Now, as we embark on the way the world is today, and it looks like we may be headed into a Great Depression, these very homes are at risk. These very homes may be at risk for the mothers and the children to be able to not be able to stay in these places, or these places may end up in a way that they cannot afford to stay in these places. But there is men that actually stay in these places with some of these women that actually were in these places and that are in there now. And it's not that they don't want to pay their own way out. Things are just too expensive. There's men right now that have housing authority units that are living in them and are going to stay in them due to the fact that it is cheaper for them to stay in there than to go out and try to pay $1,000 or $2,000, because the cost of rent is not getting any cheaper. It's steady climbing. It's steady climbing. So if you're in a place where you can afford to pay, it's best that you stay there. It's best that you stay under that safety net. And a lot of people look down on people that live under the housing authority, but the housing authority is there just for what it's there for, to help you when you cannot stand on your own 2 feet, or you cannot afford to go out there and pay all this high rents to keep a roof over your head. Then you got elderly people that live in housing authority. You got people that are disabled that live in housing authority. Housing authority has done a great job in giving housing to those that actually need it. But in the same respect, it has been the norm for them to say it's for women. It's more or less, there's always women and children. Women that are left, women that have children or have had children by different men or got different baby daddies or whatever. They always put that stigmatism on it as if there's no men living in housing authority. There are some men that live in housing authority as well. There are some men that have jobs that live in housing authority that cannot afford to go out and pay their rent as well. There are some men that live in housing authority that are raising their children also in housing authority. But it is not so much spoke about because the majority is women. The majority is women. Why? Because the women more or less are raising the kids. Not saying that there's no fathers out there that are not raising their kids, or single fathers are taking care of their kids, because there is a lot of that too. But let's just stick to the subject of the fact that why is there not talked about far as men living in housing authority, or men raising their kids in housing authority, or men living on public assistance, or men. There are men that are actually in the same situation as women. It's not just the women that are sitting on their tail that's not doing nothing, sitting on their tail that's not prospering, sitting on their tail that's not wanting to go to school, sitting on their tail that's not trying to better their life, or just sitting on the system. There's men out there that are doing the same thing, y'all. There is men that are in the same situation that have not been able to find work, whatever reason it is. But you can't just look down on the women and say it's wrong or say it's this, say when you don't know what their situation is. They could be there because of the fact that they may be sickly. They could be there because they don't have enough income. They could be there because it's just more comfortable for them to raise their kids there because it's a safety net. And the same way with the men. The men could be there because the woman may have left them with the children and they may not have enough money to be able to go out there and pay these high rents or whatever. But just understand that when you see people that are living in, whether it's a man or a woman, it just so happens we're talking about the men. And I wanted to bring awareness to the fact that there are some men that are living in housing authority and they're not bad men. They're not bad men. That does not make them to a point where they are not men that shouldn't have a decent life or can't get married or you should disrespect them. Anything, I think you should respect these people more. Why? Because they're doing what they got to do to keep their children out of the street. Y'all hear the wind. The wind is blowing real hard out here. It's really cold and rainy out today. But when I think about the fact of how many men that I do know that actually are living in housing authority, and some of them do go to work, some of them can't work, some of them are truly disabled, but yet and still they're there. They are there. So it's not just a one size fit all. This is not just a one shoe and you put it on and it just goes to all the women, all the women, all the women, all the women. All the time it's always the women that actually get talked down to or get put down or not, as they say, not giving their accolades for the fact that they stand with their children, the fact that they stay and they try to raise their children no matter how they try to raise them. It's the circumstances can take you down some long roads. If you ain't been through nothing, you keep living. Your turn is next. You'll be going through something here soon because we all get ready to go through something. So we better buckle up. buckle up, try to love each other more, try to respect each other in their proper situation. We don't know what the situations are, but we know Housing Authority was put together so that it can help people that are low income. So if a man has a low income, he should also be able to live under Housing Authority and live without ridicule and live without somebody putting their mouth on him or think that he's nothing or think that he's a bad man or think that he's not a good man because he lives in the Housing Authority. No, he's just a man that may need a little help. He may need, and a lot of times they meet women and they do get married or they do come together and they begin to help each other. And I don't care who it is. Sometimes even the richest person don't want to stand by themselves and they need somebody to help them out of a tight spot as well. So we need to just stop with that stigmatism of thinking it's just women, it's just women, it's just women. No, there are some kings out here, and I call them kings because that's exactly what they are. They just may have fallen down their luck for a minute. They may be disabled for a little while. They may need a little help. They just may need to be there because of the fact that jobs are scarce out here. Jobs were not available to them at that time, or maybe they just don't have the skills to do what the job that was available. So I just wanted to be known that there are men that also live in Housing Authority. There's men that actually do live on the system, and there is men that are actually working their way off of the system, but that is not just for women. There is men that need to go apply for Housing Authority to get them off the street. They may be coming out of situations that we have nothing to do with or we know nothing about, but yet and still, I don't want married man under the sound of my voice to feel like you should not have to go apply for assistance if that's what you need. If that's what you need, then you go apply for it. Don't you let married devil make you feel like you're not worthy of it just because you are a male, because men go through things as well. There's a time when men don't have a lot of money to do this and do this and do this. Anytime you hear me speak, you'll hear me speak as the fact of a woman being a helpmeet to a man. Even if he can pay all the bills, even if he don't allow you to pay nothing, you still should be that type of woman to say, I'm going to put something aside for a rainy day, because men need help too. Kings need help too. They're not always have enough money to do everything they may need to do either, and we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that as well. And I think this is a good video to be able to recognize the fact that there are some men out there that really need your help, woman of God. They need you to stand up. They need you to be their helpmeet, to be there to be a partner, and you got to be able to support a vision, his vision, his vision. If his vision lands you in the Housing Authority and you're in Housing Authority with him, don't look down on him. Don't look at him as if he's no good. Don't throw him away like he's garbage. If he's good enough for you to sleep with, and he's good enough for you to build with. And I'm just going to leave that thing right there. I'm going to leave it right there. Why? Because that said a lot right there. That said a lot. If he's good enough for you to sleep with, then he should be good enough for you to build with. For you to build with, meaning there's going to come a time that you may have to get up and go to work too. You can come up out of Housing Authority if both of you get a job and both of you work your way out. But don't just leave it on the king to say just because he's a man that it's his job and he's supposed to make sure. Yes, if he can, but there's a time that sometimes it takes two. It does take two sometimes. And I don't know who raised y'all to think that it don't take two, but it do take two. Because I'm telling you, and what we going through right now, and the way the world looks right now, it might take 3 or 4 of y'all. It might take you to get your whole family together and build an army so that all of you can make it. But we're going to talk about the fact that don't put your mouth on the men because of the fact that you meet them and they may be living in Housing Authority, because Housing Authority is for everybody. It's not just for women. It's for women, men, and whoever else got to go stay there. Grandma, grandpop, uncles, nephews, nieces, friends. You don't know who may end up living in Housing Authority, and you don't know the reason why they're there. And even after you do know the reason why they're there, it's not that for you to look down on them. If you can't lift them up and you can't say nothing nice about the situation, don't say nothing at all, because I have lived in Housing Authority, and I lived there until I was able to get up on my feet. So I am one that will say, if that's where you got to be until you get up on your feet and you have the mindset to try to work your way out of there, do what you need to do. Don't let people discourage you. One thing about it, you cannot walk through life worrying about what people are going to say out of their mouth, because people will say anything and everything they can to break you. Keep your focus. Keep your focus, man of God. Keep your focus. Continue to keep doing what God has called you to do. Continue to keep pushing. Continue to keep working and thriving. And effing so, you're in a place where you mentally, physically are not able to come up out of the Housing Authority, then stay right where you are in your safety net that's going to keep you in a place where you will be safe and you won't be out here on these streets. Because right now, it's getting ready to get real out here, y'all. It's getting ready to get real out here. Let's get real out here. And we need to learn to speak life and speak love over everybody's life. And thank God for the places that you have, no matter where it is. If you're living on a housing authority, you're living in Section 8, or you're living in a shed, thank God you're living in your car, you're living in your van. Thank God for what God has placed you, roof over your head. And trust and believe, I've been homeless before. It's no place for you to be. Some of y'all just ain't ready for that ride. So if he's living in housing authority, it don't make him any less of a man. And I want to throw that out there. And I pray that this message reaches who it needs to reach. I pray that those that are living in housing authority, that need housing authority, and you're there, I pray that it doesn't go away for your sake, that you're able to continue to keep paying your rent. You can keep a roof over your head and your children's head. And man of God, if you're in housing authority and you're under the sound of my voice, keep doing what you know how to do. Continue to keep living your life the best way you know how. And if housing authority is where you have to live to keep a roof over your head, don't walk with shame. Walk with your head up, because you're right where God wanted you to be. So be blessed. Know that no matter what you go through, God said in his word, he would not leave you nor forsake you. He meets you right there in that housing authority building. And that's when he will begin to change your life, because the people that are talking about you and where you are, they ain't coming to give you nothing. All they do is come to talk about it. That's what the enemy does. It goes through the land, look and see who they can devour, and they come to steal, kill, and destroy your joy. So if you're in housing authority, man of God, and if this is where you have to be right now, while you get yourself together, or while you building a life for yourself, then you continue to keep doing what God has called you to do. So with that being said, that is my inspiring message for the day. That is my motivation for the day. And I want y'all to know that I love y'all, and I want y'all to know that I see y'all, and I want y'all to subscribe to my channel so you can turn your notifications on, so that when I come alive again, come to this message again with the next message, you will be able to hear what thus saith the Lord. Be blessed.